Today, we're diving into one of the 20th century's most brilliant and, let's be honest, controversial literary figures, Yukio Mishima. We're talking about a celebrated novelist, a global star, who became obsessed with this radical quest that had nothing to do with writing and everything to do with forging a new self out of pure muscle and will.
So, how are we going to unpack this? Well, our guide is his very own philosophical essay, Sun and Steel. Now, this isn't a novel. It's more like part confession, part manual for self-destruction and rebirth. In it, he chronicles his whole journey from being a man of words to a man of the body.
And that really brings us to the heart of it, doesn't it? How does someone who lives and breathes the abstract world of literature decide that the only real truth worth finding is in physical strength, pain, and ultimately a violent end? That's the riddle we're going to explore.
Okay, so to really get Mishima, you have to understand the war that was just raging inside of him. He saw his entire life as this battleground between two completely opposed identities, the poet on one side and the warrior on the other.
And I mean, for him, this wasn't just, juggling a couple of hobbies. No way. It was a profound philosophical crisis. He felt that his spirit and his flesh weren't just separate. He believed one was actively destroying the other.
So where did all this start? Well, Mishima traced it all the way back to his childhood. He was convinced his obsession with words developed so early and so fiercely that it basically consumed his physical self before it even had a chance to grow.
That quote just captures his sense of alienation perfectly. I mean, think about it. For most of us, physical experience comes first. We touch, we feel, we run, and then we find the words for it. For Mishima, it was the exact opposite. Words came first, and he felt they tainted reality before he could even experience it for himself.
And he framed this whole opposition in these incredibly stark terms. Words to him were corrosive and abstract, like an acid eating him from the inside out. The flesh, on the other hand, that was pure reality. It was action. It was silent, taciturn, and totally unburdened by all that intellectual baggage.
He even had this powerful metaphor for it. He pictured his physical being as this pillar of wood that was being devoured by what he called the white ants of words. Right from the very beginning, his sense of reality, his own body, felt compromised from day one.
So what do you do when you believe your own mind has basically destroyed your body? Well, Mishima's solution was just as radical as his problem. He embarked on this conscious, almost religious quest to rebuild his physical self from the ground up. He started calling his body his orchard, like a garden that had been left to the weeds of intellectualism, and he decided he was going to become its gardener. His tools for this whole project were simple, primal, and deeply symbolic. First, there was the sun. As a sickly, bookish kid, he had always loved the dark. Now, he forced himself out into the sunlight to literally bake away the paleness of the study. And second, there was the steel. He began this intense bodybuilding regimen, submitting his body to the cold, hard logic of heavy weights.
And here's the crucial point. This wasn't just about getting fit. Not at all. He was searching for a new kind of knowledge, something he called the language of the flesh. He truly believed that muscles and sweat and pain held a kind of wisdom that was completely inaccessible to the intellect.
I mean, he said it himself. For him, building his body was literally like learning a foreign language. It gave him a completely new way to understand the world, a way to tap into a reality that his first language, words, had actually blocked him from.
But here's the thing. Mishima's ultimate goal wasn't to just abandon words for the body. Oh no, it was way more ambitious. He wanted to force these two warring parts of himself, art and action, into a single, unified philosophy.
And he totally recognized the paradox here. Action is beautiful because it's momentary. It happens, and then it's gone. Art, on the other hand, is beautiful because it tries to be permanent, to capture a moment and make it last forever. So how could one person possibly embody both?
He saw action as a real flower, a blossom, glorious in its brief life and, its inevitable decay. Literature, he argued, was an artificial flower. Sure, it was imperishable, but it was also fake. He wanted to be both the blossom and the monument to it.
And this is where his thinking gets pretty revolutionary, especially for an artist. He started to believe the body wasn't just some dumb vehicle for the mind. He argued that it could have its own eloquence, its own loquacity, an intelligence that could absolutely rival anything created with words.
Think about it this way. An idea, no matter how profound, is abstract. It doesn't stare back at you. But an opponent in a fight, well, that is a reality that returns one's gaze. For Mishima, that immediate, undeniable reality was a much purer form of truth than any novel could ever be.
So this entire intense philosophical journey, this quest to unite sun and steel, art and action, it all led him to one final and truly shocking conclusion. His entire project was aimed at one ultimate act.
And this is where the logic becomes, frankly, pretty chilling. He believed that to die a heroic, meaningful death, what he called a romantically noble one, he first needed the perfect body. A weak, flabby body meeting some dramatic end was, to him, just absurdly inappropriate. His muscles were the costume for his final performance.
So, how does he justify this? Well, he reasoned that a beautiful, powerful body is only saved from being vain or comical by its potential for a glorious, tragic end. The awareness of its own mortality is what gives the flesh its dignity.
And that brings us to the final, terrifying step in his logic. To solve that problem of being both the observer and the observed, the artist and the subject, Mishima concluded that the only way to unify seeing and existing was through a single, violent act of self-destruction. In that one moment, the body would become the ultimate work of art.
And so, we're left with this haunting question that Mishima's life and work just forces us to confront. By following his philosophy all the way to its brutal conclusion, did he prove that the greatest work of art isn't something you create, but something you become, in the very moment that you destroy it?